So with that said, I'm so jazzed to have Darren Sugiyama come in and speak to us today. As you notice, he's got, this is just one of his books. Well, I lost track, 4 books? 5 books? 5 books. He's written 5 books, and he is a whiz when it comes to our industry and utilizing life insurance in some unique ways. And I want to step on your toes because I know you've got a bio, but I'm just jazzed that you wrote over, what, $2 million of premium last year, I think?
This year, just over 3 so far.
3, awesome, right? So he's a rock star. With that said, I'll hand it over to Darren.
Thank you guys. Just so I understand who's in the room, how many of you guys are actually running an agency? We have producers or sub-producers that are working in your shop? A handful of people? Okay. Everyone else sole practitioners?
Yes.
Direct to consumer? Okay, great. So I'll try to get this through this intro as fast as possible here. I'll just tell you kind of where we started, where we're at now, and then the progression from A to Z. I actually did not get my start in the insurance industry in life insurance. We started out doing employee benefits. So it was 2003. I knew really nothing about insurance whatsoever. I was a high school teacher in Hawaii. I was a bouncer in a nightclub. That was my second job. And my third job was I was counseling inmates in prison. So my 3 jobs, I think all together on a good year, I'd make like maybe 34, 35,000. My that's a year, by the way, not a month. My teaching salary, I was getting paid $29,500 a year with a master's degree. Teaching high school.
In Hawaii?
In Hawaii, yeah, on Oahu. And I got married really early and I divorced really early. I moved back to the mainland, as they call it in Hawaii, the mainland, right? And trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And I heard this crazy rumor about an old Little League baseball coach of mine that was making $1 million a year selling life insurance. So I tracked him down, called him up, went out to visit him in his Newport Beach office. And I remember driving back to my crappy little 1-bedroom apartment in Huntington Beach, saying to myself, man, if that idiot can do it, maybe I can do it. So I jumped into the insurance industry and know nothing. What do? I don't start out working for an agency or working for a carrier. I started off and I started an agency. It was called Apex Outsourcing. Apex started out literally out of hotel lobbies, right? So I had the Four Seasons Hotel in Newport Beach, which is now the Island Hotel over by Fashion Island. I had a Beverly Hills office, satellite office. It was called the Coffee Bean on the corner of Robinson and Beverly. And I had a downtown LA office. That was the lobby of the Omni Hotel. So it was me and 6 licensed idiots. And no one knew what they were doing. And I was trying to figure out how I was going to build this super agency. My problem was I made my hot list 100, right, my warm market, best friends and family. Everyone on that list was broke like me. And the family members that had a little bit of money, they didn't want to do business with me. So that went and came and went really quickly. And I had to figure out how am I going to get high net worth business owners to hear me out. And so I wrote a cold calling script. I started smiling and dialing. I brought on a crew of 6 people. They started smiling and dialing. And in the first year, it was challenging as hell. Here's my insurance license, January 2nd, 2003. And this is my first year's tax return, 2003. If you see right there, that shows a gross income for the year of $277. That's gross, okay? Things were rough in the first year. Trying to figure out how the hell am I going to reinvent this wheel? Everyone said don't reinvent the wheel. The problem was the wheel that worked for everyone else wasn't working for me, and so I had to figure out something. It took me a couple years to figure things out, and this is one of my books here, The Icon Effect. This right here is essentially represents a graph, right? So here's success on the vertical axis, here is time on the horizontal axis. And here's what happened to me and what happens to most folks that start a business, is they start putting in time and they flatline for a long period of time, like no growth, no growth, no growth. Right around here where that little dot is that's where the fork in the road really happens. And you either quit and you go back and work a regular job, or you press on, and typically most people consider quitting right before things really take off, where the business hits critical mass and the revenue starts coming in, and that's essentially what happened to me. Here's 2 years later, 2005 tax return, we went from $277 to $340, and then it just went up from there. And so the question that a lot of folks ask me is, what happened between my first year and my second year? I didn't get genetically smarter, the market didn't change, what changed was my approach. What changed was my strategy to get lead gen, right, generate leads. My strategy in terms of what the message was that I was conveying on the first meet with the prospect, that changed. My closing technique changed. My value proposition changed. Everything about my process changed. And once I got in that flow, again, things just really took off. By my 5th year in the business, we were doing just north of 30 million in annual premium. Now that sounds a lot more impressive than it really is. It was health insurance premium, right? So we're not making 95, 100% comp on premium. It was like 7 to 10% comp, but it was still pretty good. We're number 1 in the country with 3 different carriers, Kaiser Permanente Health Net and Colonial Life. We're number 2 in the state of California for Aetna, number 1 in Orange County with Blue Shield. The list kind of goes on and on. This is all happening concurrently at the same time. And I did this with a bunch of recent college grads that knew nothing about nothing. Like, these kids didn't even know how to do their own laundry kind of thing. Some of them were living at home with their mommy and daddy. But I taught them exactly what to say, how to say it, how to walk, how to talk, how to dress, how to do the whole thing. And like I said, in a pretty short amount of time, we're doing a lot of business. And this is essentially what happened to me. 0, 0, 0. And 1 month we hit a little bit of increase. We actually closed the case. It actually paid a commission. And then we went right back down and flatlined again. And then right around the end of the first year, the 11th month of the first year was when I cracked the code. And then things just really took off. And then bang, 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 bang. So I think, anyone here in the business for less than 2 years? Anyone in the business here for less than 1 year? Okay, so right now your life probably sucks. You're probably looking on Career Builder every night for a real job with a base salary. Your spouse, your friends, your family are probably telling you, why don't you go get a real job? I don't know if that sounds familiar, right? That's what happened to me. And the problem, I think, is it's partially them, but it's also us. You know, the reason I say that is, if my kid, my adult kid, was working 12 to 14 hours a day like I was, 7 days a week, and making less than $300 a year, I'm thinking the kid has a drug problem. I'm thinking the kid is nuts. I'm thinking the kid is absolutely delusional, because when you see this for that long, it doesn't seem like you're making any progress. The progress that I was making was figuring out everything that didn't work. Once I eliminated everything that didn't work, there were only a few things left. And once I stumbled across those things, then it started actually working and things took off. So, yeah, 2006, 2007-ish or so, right before the crash, everyone starts to panic, right? Real estate markets crash, everything's crashing. My business was growing exponentially during that time. And I was in my mid-30s, which is pretty darn young for this industry, making a ton of money, and I hired a financial advisor. I hired someone that kind of looks like you guys, right? What do I do with my money? I don't know what to do with my money. We're selling health insurance, right? I don't know anything about life insurance or cash value or managed accounts. I don't know anything about index. I don't know anything about anything other than how to go out and sell group health insurance. So I hired a financial advisor. He was the #1 producing agent in the Western region with Mass Mutual at that time. And so I figured, how did I go wrong? Newport Beach office, looks good, smells good, successful, et cetera, et cetera. So I said, well, tell me what to do. So he says, here's what you want to do. You want to convert your agency into an ESOP-owned entity. You're going to get all these tax deductions up front. You're going to fund 17 life insurance policies, and you're going to use the value of life insurance policies to buy back the stock value when your people leave or retire. So you're going to use the IRS's money to fund their retirement, and you pay no taxes right now. Sounds good to me. Sign me up, right? I know nothing outside of what I just told you. Don't understand the difference between whole life or VUL or UL or GUL or nothing. I know nothing. So I put a big policy on myself, $20 million policy on me, and a policy on my other 16 guys. Okay? 3 years into it, I start thinking, maybe I should do a little bit of research and find out what I'm doing, because I'm putting away $200 grand a year spread over these 17 policies. So I hire a tax attorney to come in and do an internal audit on this great plan. I can't ask the financial advisor, because they're going to say it's the best thing since sliced bread. They put it together, right? So the attorney comes in and audits me for a week. After the first week, he says, Darren, I got bad news for you. I said, what's up? He goes, your ESOP is completely out of compliance. You got to unwind the whole thing. You paid in $600,000 in premium into these life insurance policies. Your cash surrender value was zero. And on top of that, you know, the IRS and the state of California combined $330,000 in back taxes, penalties, and interest. Yeah, and so that means I gotta make like 600 grand just to pay off the 300 grand. The 600 grand I pay in the policies is gone. This doesn't include attorney fees, CPA fees to unwind everything, TPA fees. So this clown lost me well over $1 million in a 3-year period. And I was pissed, obviously. I was embarrassed because I think I'm smart. I'm Asian, which means I'm genetically superior at math, and it still happened. How could this happen? How could this happen? And so I'm a big believer in taking lemons. Forget turning the lemons into lemonade. That's too small time for me. I want to take the lemons, build a steak and lemonade factory, and then franchise the lemonade factory. And so that was the first introduction to cash value life insurance I had, was losing about $1.2 million. Right, $900,000, $930,000 in hard cash, about $1.2 million all in. So I wrote this book called Ouch, which is on Amazon. How my financial advisor lost me $930,000 in 3 years. And it tells the story of what happened. It also tells the story of me kind of awakening to how the investment world works. So right before all this stuff happened, right, I'm making a ton of money. I live in $1 million penthouse, old bachelor pad, 2 blocks from the beach. And I get a vacation bachelor pad. It's a 1-bedroom place right on the water in Hawaii, right in front of my favorite surf spot on Oahu. And I'm thinking, I'm gonna jet over there once a month. We'll go over there for a week, take a new chick every time. Ultimate bachelor life. Ultimate bachelor life. And then something happened that completely foiled my bachelor plan. I met my wife. The first girl I ever took to Hawaii was my wife, and she's also the last girl. So here's the story on the Hawaii place. Okay, so I bought it for $515. It's a condotel, so it's a hotel, but all the units are owned by individuals or entities. Bought it for $515, 20% required down, so $103,000 down. My rental income over a 20-year period is going to be about $480,000. If it doubled in value, it's roughly $1 million, and I sold it. Right, so I bought it for $500,000, sold it for $1 million. I got a $500,000 in rental income coming in. Does that sound like a good deal?
Yeah.
It sounds like a good deal, right? What a brilliant real estate investor I am. Until I got into the financial services business and I spreadsheeted it. Now here are all the real math that no one talks about. So first of all, I pay 3% real estate commissions on the way in, right? If I pay 3% on the way out when I sell, I'm actually paying double what I paid on the way in, because the property value is worth twice as much. I'm paying long-term capital gains tax on the growth of the value of the property. I also have to factor in the 25% I pay the management company to check people in and check people out, to manage all that. I'm at the highest income tax bracket, so I mean, as I'm paying half of every dollar that comes in rent income, I pay that out. Didn't account for the time they stole my 42-inch flat screen TV out of the living room. Doesn't account for the maintenance and the remodeling, all the stuff that goes into it. Doesn't account for any of that stuff. Doesn't account for the mortgage interest. Yes, a tax deduction, kind of, sort of, but it's still an expense, right? Over a 20-year period, where do you think I am financially if I sell it for double what I paid for it, and I got $500,000 in rental income coming in?
You get rid of return?
What do you think I am dollar-wise? Dollars in, dollars out. What's my net? What would you think?
6%.
How much you lose on this one?
How much did I make, or how much did I would have thought, simple math is, well, I made $500,000 in property appreciation, I made $500,000 in rental income, I made $1 million, right? No, the actual net is I'm negative a little over $430,000.
You write a new book.
Yeah, what? I talk about it in here. So it's like, do you realize over a 20-year period how many nice vacations I could take for 430 grand? So it's really understanding the true net mathematics of what any type of vehicle is actually going to give the client, whether it be insurance-based or non-insurance-based, and that's what nobody does. Nobody calculates anything at that level, and that's really the foundation of my career ever since I figured all this stuff out. So I started DaVinci Financial, this is 2012. All we did was cold call business owners in the 15 different states, and about 80% of our business was term replacement, and about 20% was IUL. as an asset class. And so when we did term replacement, similar to Andrew talked about the CSO tables, this was right on the tail end of the last CSO change that went into effect in 2009. Prior to that, the CSO table didn't change. If you could go back, the most recent change was 1980. So 1980 to 2001, when they established the new table, that's a 20-year period, right? What do you think happened in 20 years? Technology advanced, cost of insurance went down. So when they established that table in 2001, it didn't take effect until 2009. So when I came into business in 2012, our message was, if you bought a policy before 2009, you're overpaying for it. And we wrote a ton of crappy little term policies. It was exciting back then because I had a shop of about 60 agents on the floor dialing, smiling and dialing, and doing these term replacements. But those are small little policies. And dealing with 60 agents was like herding cats. It's like having 60 kids. The problem is I couldn't spank the 60 kids when they deserve a good whipping. And so we continued that up until about 4.5 years ago. I started looking at the business saying, we got to be doing something better. This business model sucks. I want to do IULs, and I want to do them at the company work site. So we had done a lot of business with Colonial Life, which is kind of like an Aflac type of product, and we sold that at the work site. So I came up with this idea: we're gonna change the underwriting platform, change the way it's delivered, change everything. And the first company I approached that program with was Pacific Life. To make a very long story short, it took me 3.5 years to get it approved. Last year we rolled that out, and last year with 6 agents on this pilot test in my shop, we did a little over 25% of Pacific Life's policy sales in Orange County. At the end of last year, I took the program to Penn Mutual, showed them the whole deal. Penn Mutual now has made a very significant multi-six-figure investment in my firm for no equity. To model that same marketing program with their IUL. All along the way, though, I'm still thinking to myself, what's the average premium going to be for an average working class, cubicle type worker at a company that's making, 40, 50 grand? What's the most they're going to put away per month, would you say? Exactly, 100, 200 bucks, right? So you're talking like 1,500 to 3,000 in annual premium. And that just does not get me excited. So I had been keeping my eyes on premium financing for years. And I've seen more premium financing cases go south. I would say at least more than half of every premium finance case I've ever personally seen up close went south. Meaning the policy ended up surrendering, the client lost all this money, the agent made a ton of money, and they're on to the next one. And that just has always given me just a bad taste in my mouth. All that being said, I always believed there was a place for premium financing if done properly. I just never seen it really done, in my opinion, properly. So I started yet another firm, Lionsmark Capital. All we do is premium financing in this company. And the design is completely different than any other premium financing program in the space. All the inherent risks, all the liabilities that a client would be exposed to, we have either mitigated or completely eliminated in our process. Part of it has to do with the lending parameters, part of it has to do with the policy design, and I'll show you a case study. And the case study is actually on Ohio National Paper, because Andrew said he wouldn't let me in the door if I showed another carrier.
We laughed.
So we'll talk about that. Everything I'm going to show you and everything that we do at our firm is based off of indisputable math, right? I was just on a conference call with a gentleman back east this morning in my car in the parking lot. He saw me out there. And I said everything we do is based off of the indisputable math, because here's what I know. You don't care about my opinion. And you shouldn't, because I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what the market's going to do. I can't tell you what lender rates are going to do. We can all speculate, but speculating is complete BS. In fact, I don't know if I should say this on video, but when you want a carrier illustration on carrier software, you realize that illustration, if you remove 4 of the letters which should be removed, it spells illusion, right? There's nothing in that carrier illustration that's going to happen. Because the markets are never going to produce a flat 7% or 8% or 6% or whatever it is. You're never going to get a static return. You're going to have volatility. And the crazy thing about it is that the whole value of the IUL is the 0% forward. Right? That's the whole value. So if you just run that product at a flat static annual return, or a static IRR, it really does not showcase the true value of the product. So what we do is we actually run the carry illustration, we extract the data, we put it and download it into our software, and we rerun a model that shows what that policy would have done in 5 different 40-year look-back periods with volatility, with poor sequence of returns. We stress test the hell out of it, and I'll get into exactly how we model that in just a few minutes here. And that really gives the client a truly transparent look at how these policies would perform when things don't go as planned. And the reality is things never go as planned. Okay? The process that I teach all of my guys and that I institute personally when we deal with clients is a program I came up called CHECKMATE, and I do a 2-day boot camp seminar on this process. The CHECKMATE process is essentially a method of communication where you're asking a series of questions in a particular chronological order that ends up putting that client in a position where they can't say no. I don't tell the client to do anything. I don't advise the client to do anything. I'm not a financial advisor. I hate financial advisors. I don't want to advise anyone to do anything. All I want to show is model what can happen in these different scenarios and ask questions. I already know what the answers to the questions are going to be. So the goal is by the end of the meeting, and I told clients this up front, I told CPAs this up front, the goal is by the end of this phone call or the end of this meeting, you're going to run out of reasons not to do this. And I never recommended anything. They're going to sell me on why they should use this program. So let's get into this here. So the program we developed is called Leveraged Index Arbitrage. That's our version of premium financing, and I'll walk you through what that actually is. For some of you folks who might have a little more background in premium financing, others, this may be your first exposure. Anyone here ever complete a premium finance case? Okay. Anyone here never even seen a premium finance design? Has no idea? Okay, good. Good cross-section of folks here.
They didn't answer.
What's that?
They didn't answer.
Yeah, that means they don't know what I'm talking about, so we're gonna get into it.
I've seen
Okay,
never.
anyone here writing IUL at least half the time? Okay, anyone here never write an IUL case? Okay, so this is good. So let's go all the way back. So some of you guys are gonna have to sit through something a little bit redundant for some of you guys as the first exposure. I'm gonna make this as simple to understand as possible. Here's essentially the concept of an IUL. Okay, you have an indexed account. Typically, we use the S&P 500. Index account, what's the S&P 500? It's the 500 biggest companies in the States. It's essentially all it is. And they put all that stock returns into one package, like a value meal, a Jack in the Box. And you put your money in, and whatever that group of companies returns, that's what you're going to get. That's the layman's way of explaining what the S&P 500 is. So the index account is sitting inside a life insurance wrapper. What's the benefit of having the index account inside the life insurance wrapper versus just going on to whatever, Fidelity.com and buying a S&P index account? The tax deferral is big. Let's not forget, it is a life insurance policy. Remember, you have death benefit if you die early. So the client is going to make their annual or monthly contributions, right? The premium payments. And then if they die ahead of schedule, their family's going to get the death benefit tax-free. Right? That's based off an IRS tax code section 101A. Okay? If they live as expected, as those funds grow, it's going to grow tax-deferred. Okay, and as that index account grows tax deferred, that's all based off a different IRS tax code, section 7702. And then it allows that client, prior to death, they could pull out a tax-free retirement income stream. Okay, so the index account is pretty straightforward. How the index account credits will vary from policy to policy to policy. Most of the index universal life insurance policies, they have a 0% floor. So what that means is if the market takes 20%, where everyone else in the free world lost 20% of their entire nut, right? Your cash value doesn't decrease. The crediting doesn't go negative. In exchange for that downside protection, they're going to limit your upside. So most of these policies will have like a cap, 10%, 11%, 12% cap. So if the market's up 20%, the most you can make is whatever the cap is. Now, the interesting thing about the S&P is if you track the last 40 years of the S&P, rarely did the S&P return between 0% and say 10%. It's usually up in the 20s or it's below 0. So what we're doing here is we're eliminating all the downside and participating on a decent amount of the upside. Okay, so that's the general method of the IUL crediting. The funding method can change. This is where premium financing comes in. So here's a really easy way to understand premium financing. Let's say you've got a person that's going to do a 20K IUL. They're going to pay $50,000 a year in annual premium. Over the course of 20 years, the cumulative premium they paid out of pocket was $1 million. Okay. Another way to do it, they could front load those premiums. So instead of paying $1 million over 20 years, they can front load it and pay that $1 million all up front the first 5 years on a 5-pay. Now, if you're looking at this from a cash value accumulation standpoint, which one, in theory, is going to perform better? When you spread the deposits out over 20 years, when you pop them in all up front? Yeah, the front loaded, right? You have a larger dollar amount compounding with that index return from the beginning than you do spread over time. The other way to do it is you could still do this 5-pay or 6-pay or 7-pay, but you could borrow the premiums. So instead of the guy cutting a $200,000 check, $200,000, $200,000, $200,000, they could borrow this premium and just say speculatively at 4.5% interest. In the first year they borrow $200,000, they pay 4.5% interest, so they're paying $9,000 out of pocket instead of $200,000, instead of $50,000. Year 2, they borrow another $200,000. So now they've borrowed a total of $400,000. They're going to pay 4.5% of the $400,000. Their interest payment to the bank's $18,000 instead of $200,000 or $50,000. Third year, they borrow another $200,000. They borrow now $600,000. They pay 4.5% on $600,000, which is $27,000, which is still less than $200,000 or $50,000. You get the idea here? Now, typically, what will happen is they will continue to make these interest payments on that cumulatively borrowed $1 million, and usually after 15 years, the reason it goes to 0 is because you have all that premium loaded in up front, the cash value is now grown. You can now pull from the cash value, pay off the $1 million loan, and now that thing's on autopilot all the way through. The benefit is that you use OPM, other people's money, to fund that policy up front, so you have a larger dollar amount compounding. You're paying a very small amount out of pocket, relatively speaking. And then the question is the cash value, because it's compounded so much up front, is that going to be better than the cash value if you pay the annual premiums out of pocket? In most cases, the answer is yes. Some cases, the answer is no. So that's our job, is to run the numbers for the client and figure out, does this concept make sense for their unique situation? The older they are, the rougher it gets. The more unhealthy they are, the rougher it gets. And obviously, you have to have a client that can withstand interest payments going up if borrowing rates go up. And we're going to talk about all those issues. Okay? Any questions on the general concept of this before I move on? Yep.
What's the ideal age?
If it is for cash accumulation, up to about age 62 is great. The younger they are, lower the cost of insurance, better the growth. We've dealt with some very young folks, like their 30s, even 20s. The challenge is they have a lot of income. They can afford to buy a big Honda policy, but the cost of insurance is so low, the death benefit gets pushed way up, and so it's difficult to write a $30 million face on a 27-year-old because they don't have the net worth to justify it, and sometimes. So there's a balancing act between when it makes sense and when it doesn't make sense. If it's a death benefit play, we're comparing a non-finance policy to a finance policy. Once you get up to, say, age 71, it starts to get a little dicey, north of age 71. But a 69-year-old, 70-year-old, well, again, we'll compare it. So I was at a big symposium a few weeks ago, big carrier symposium, and somebody asked me what my perspective is on the cash value returns when you're financing premiums. I said, this is the magic question here that no one's asking. Compared to what? Compared to investing in Bitcoin 2 years ago, it sucks. Compared to investing in real estate in 2007, it's great. Compared to a managed account based off of historical returns, it kicks the crap out of the managed account. So compared to what? And that's what our software does, is it compares it to the logical alternative, whether it's a cash value play or it's a death benefit play. And I'll show you both examples in this case study here.
In your illusion here, you've got 4.5 all
Yeah.
the way through. So what is your,
We're going to show that.
okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
I have one question. When you
Yep.
say cash value, are you thinking about just accumulating or at some point moving out the distributions on a tax-free basis?
You can do both. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. The borrow rate. He's my Ed McMahon. He's teeing me up for everything here.
Thank you.
But Darren, but wait, okay, so borrow rate, or how to calculate the borrow rate. So the borrow rate, there's a base rate. The base rate we use is typically the U.S. Treasury daily yield curve, the 12-month yield curve. We can use a LIBOR-based rate. Right now, and up until now, so far, the U.S. Treasury daily yield curve has been more advantageous to the client. That changes on a daily basis, but once you get the loan in place, that's locked in for a year. Yesterday, the U.S. Treasury daily yield curve rate was 2.73%. The day before was 2.72%, right? So it fluctuates. Then the lender is going to add on a spread on top of that, the bank. Depending on the size of the loan, that will dictate the spread they put on. The spread is never greater than 250 basis points, 2.5%. It's never less than 1.75%. Okay, so it's largely based on the size of the loan. So based off of yesterday's yield curve rate and a 2-point spread, the borrow rate's gonna be 4.73. Those are for first year funds borrowed. After the funds have been sitting in the policy for 12 months, the bank lowers their spread down 25 basis points. So according to yesterday's yield curve, the ongoing would be right around 4.5%. Okay?
Pardon me, just locked in for 1 year at a time, right?
1 year at a time, yep. So the question is, what happens if that U.S. Treasury daily yield curve increases? Well, there's one thing I can almost guarantee, and that is, that sucker's gonna increase. Absolutely it has. It was like 1.83% on January 3rd of this year. The year before that, it was less than 1% on January 3rd. So we're gonna talk about how we calculate those increases.
What is the maximum spread you said?
2.5. Two and a half first year, 2.25 thereafter.
Okay.
Yep. So I'll show you how we model the increase on that in just a second here. Yes.
How do these compare to the one that I did a couple of years ago was based on LIBOR?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a different index, obviously. Yeah. Have you looked at that, comparing it to LIBOR?
Yep.
And this comes out to be better?
In most cases, yes, but if it doesn't, then we'll do a LIBOR-based rate. You know? I did one earlier this year. A client paid a first-year premium of $2.5 million and borrowed $12 million. $2 million spread over years 2 through 7. So 6 years of borrowing at $2 million, cumulative $12 million. We used a LIBOR-based loan for him, 2-point spread. Okay. So here's the general concept of leveraged index arbitrage. Right? Leveraged because we're leveraging the bank's money. Right? Index because we're using an IUL. We're leveraging that up so the index account's going to be bigger because you got more premiums going in because they're borrowed funds coming from the lender. And then so if the policy return hypothetically is 7% and they're borrowing hypothetically at 4%, the arbitrage is the difference between what the policy's crediting and what the client's paying in interest. Okay? Now this is where most premium financing so-called experts stop. Now this is BS because here's what we know. That ain't going to happen every year. And we're already north of 4%. So what happens if that gets inversed? Well, before we get into that, one thing to understand is that the interest that you're paying on the loan is simple interest. In other words, you borrow $10 million, you're paying interest on that $10 million and never more than $10 million. You're earning compound interest in the policy. So as your cash value goes from $2 million to 2.1 to 2.2 to 3 million to 4 million, you're earning that rate of return on the compounded grown number versus the simple interest that you're paying on the principal only of the loan. You see what I'm saying? So here's what I mean by this. Simple versus compound interest, okay? Let's say you take out a $2 million loan and you're paying 4% interest per year on the $2 million loan, you're paying 80 grand in interest payment in that year. okay? Now, let's say the borrow rate goes up to 7%. Well, now your interest payment's 140 grand, right? Instead of, instead of 80,000. That's a big jump. That's a big jump. Now, let's say in a policy, let's say we have $2 million in cash value, and let's say it's growing at a paltry little 4% after cost of insurance and all that. Okay? And say that happens for 20 years. You end up with $4.3 million in cash value. Now, in that year, if it still only grows at 4%, you're earning 4% credit, cash value credit on the $4.3 million, not the $2 million. So in that year, you'd have a $175,000 gain, while you paid $140,000 in interest payment. So you actually have a $35,000 positive arbitrage between what you earned in the policy net and what you paid in interest in that given year. So the reason this is so important to understand is that you're actually in a negative percentage arbitrage, right? You're paying 7% interest, you only earn 4 in the policy. Yet you have a positive dollar arbitrage. You're earning about 75, you're paying about 40. This is a very simple concept, but no one talks about this. And the way I just explained it to you is about as simple and straightforward as it gets. I've been in this damn business for 16 years, and no one has explained this to me. They keep talking about civil versus combat. Oh, sounds good. Well, what's the mathematics behind it? That's why we need more Asians in this industry. No one is really doing the math. And that's what we do, okay? So our program, what we offer from lending terms is something that I have not seen any other premium financing intermediary firm able to offer, or any lender able to offer. So first of all, there are no outside collateral requirements. Typically when you borrow premiums, the client is going to have to post outside collateral. So think of it like this, right? Just use an easy number. You borrow $1 million in premium, you pay $1 million into the policy, right? And the client's going to pay, let's call it, 5% interest on $1 million, right? So they make a $50,000 interest payment, $1 million goes into the policy. How much cash value do you think's in that policy if you pay $1 million in the first year?
Maybe 200,000.
Yeah, I mean, if you're lucky, maybe $200,000-300,000. So pretend you're the lender, you're the bank. You loan the client $1 million, and you take a collateral assignment against the policy, right? So let's say it's got whatever $200,000 in cash value. As a lender, you're secured, right? You get $200,000 that is yours, you're first in line for. But you got $800,000 exposure. What happens if that client doesn't pay the interest payment and they default on the loan? You get your 200 grand back. You're going to start a policy, take the 200,000 cash value, but you're upside down 800 grand. If you're a lender, would you loan that $1 million?
Absolutely not.
No way, right? They got to have collateral. So they're going to have to post about $900 to $1 million in a side account that they can't touch, that you're first in line for. So the client, they're only paying 50 grand in interest, but they have to post like 900 grand in collateral. You know what percentage of the time the clients are told that and explain that up front? It's very, very small. It's probably less than 1%. Do you think that's important? Because the client's not going to qualify for the loan unless they post the collateral. So how here, the poor client goes through Parabed, blood, urine, financial underwriting, submit last 2 years tax return, personal financial statement, brokerage, all this stuff, and then they say, oh, by the way, you got to post 900 grand collateral. What do you think happens to the deal? I detest non-transparency. Absolutely detest it. It's bad for everybody. Okay, so no collateral requirements up front. The policy is the sole collateral. So in our program, the client pays the first year premium. They get the cash value, a little bit of a running head start. So by the time they go to borrow the premiums in year 2, the total cash value, as long as it's the minimum of 105% of the funds borrowed, the policy is the sole collateral. So client pays in, let's say easy number. Client pays in $1 million in premium. Policy cash value, surrender value, first year, 200, 300 grand. Next year, they go to borrow $1 million from the lender, $1 million goes in, so now they got $2 million in premium going into the policy. The policy cash value is probably gonna be about $1.2 million. As long as the policy cash value is $1,050,000, it's the 5%, the policy is the sole collateral. So imagine you're the lender, you're the bank, and a guy comes to you and says, hey, I want you to lend me $1 million. And he said, where's it gonna go? It's gonna go to a life insurance policy, and you're first in line on life insurance policy. Well, if I loan you $1 million and the index in the policy credit's 0, what's the cash value? It's $1.1 million. How secure is that loan if you're the lender? You loan a guy $1 million, you're first in line on a cash secured account of $1.1 million on a 100-plus-year-old life insurance company. That's about as secure as you're gonna get. Yep.
Are you using cash value rider?
No.
Okay, good.
No cash value rider. We typically blend,
Yeah.
about a 50-50 blend, but no really cash value riders.
And Darren, that's only working because the cash is there. You can't do that in year 0 when there is no cash.
Exactly. Exactly.
So in year 0, are you saying that, you're saying you don't have collateral and you're getting people to loan them?
No, in year 1, the client's gonna pay the first year premium,
Okay.
almost like a down payment on a house. Think of it that way.
I missed that.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people will say, well, gee, you're talking about a big first year premium. We've never had a problem with that. And the reason is because, gee, $1 million first year premium, that's a lot of money. It's not like we're taking that out of his income.
Right.
He's moving it from a managed investment account, from his right pocket into his left pocket. He's got the money. Right? If they don't have the money, this is not for them. This is not the way to get someone into a big honking life insurance policy that cannot afford it. This is to get someone in the same policy they're going to buy anyway, but use leverage so they can keep the big lion's share of their money working for them elsewhere, right? At an advantageous borrow rate. There's a question over here somewhere.
Yeah, well, what is the minimum life insurance you can get every policy?
The minimum policy we work on is $100,000 in target. So going to be roughly $250,000 first year premium.
Now on the second year, you need to deduct the premium too. There is premium involved, right? It's the cost of insurance.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's also the cost of insurance.
So if the return is 0,
Yeah, I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you that.
because the cost of insurance goes up.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot.
So we have a column in our ledger called the TPC, or total policy cost. Total policy cost includes cost of insurance, premium loads, non-guaranteed coverage, COI charges, agent commissions, the whole thing.
Now, let me ask you, I'm a little confused. So I'm new at Ohio National, I'm just starting out.
Mhm.
Is this policy offered through Ohio National, or is
I'm going to show you the Ohio National illustration. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. One quick question. What if someone is cash strapped, but they have tons of, let's say, rental property, income property?
Mhm.
Can we use that to collateralize?
In theory, yes. It typically doesn't work very well, but, and we can have this conversation offline.
Sure.
We had a client that had a $14 million commercial property with 80% equity in it. He went to his mortgage lender, right? So we're keeping the two sides separate. We're staying pure over here to still pay first year premium. They came up with their first year premium by going and taking a line of credit against the $14 million commercial building. So the guy takes a $2.5 million line of credit, boom, uses that as the first year premium, and now everything over here on our side is nice and pure. And the goal is to use the policy cash value to pay off the line of credit on his commercial building after 10 years. So for someone that's real estate heavy, that can work. Yeah. Okay. So no outside collateral. The policies are still collateral. If you have a loan and the only collateral that's posted is the policy, so you got no collateral, you're not personally guaranteeing the loan. How nice is that? So the client is not signing any personal guarantees on the loan, so it doesn't screw up your DTI, debt to income ratio. Right? In a normal situation, if they're going to borrow $12 million, that's going to go on their debt to income ratio. And Jesus, this guy's got $12 million in debt, or the guy's just incurred $12 million in debt. With us, that doesn't happen because there's no personal signatures required. Why? Because the lender, the bank, is solely looking at the value of the policy. So they're really underwriting the solvency of the carrier, and they're underwriting the policy design. They're not really financially underwriting the client. So like a lot of clients, maybe they had a couple crappy years in a row and embarrassed, or they think that submitting their last 2 year's tax return is going to disqualify them from the loan. It won't. If we fund it properly, we design it properly. Which is, by the way, that is not the way premium financing is typically done. So the last thing here, non-recourse to the borrower. The sole recourse of the loan is the policy. So it keeps things really, really simple. We can turn around a loan approval and premium funded into the policy in 5 business days. 2 years tax returns, personal financial statement using the bank's format, driver's license, and a enforced copy of the policy. I just did my wife's policy a month and a half ago. We submitted the documents on a Monday. Not loan approval, my policy, or her policy, was funded premiums in the policy in less than 48 hours. You know how long it usually takes? 3 to 9 months. My competitors take 3 to 9 months. Okay, full transparency, this is what I'm talking about here. Where we talk about what happens if the borrowing rate increases, what happens if the client runs into cash flow problems, they have problems where they can't pay the interest payment. And then what happens if the policy doesn't perform because the S&P is not performing? These are the 3 things that clients are most worried about. I'm going to show you all these 3 things separately, and then I'm going to show you the policy with all these things, the 3 things compounded on top of each other at the same time to see if this still works, which nobody does. Okay? Here's the sample client, 55-year-old male, select non-tobacco, $20 million in death benefit. We're going to use the Virtus IUL, which is the Ohio National product. Has a 10.5% cap, 0% floor. We ran the policy at 5.75%. Your AG49 max is $699, is that right?
683, I think. No, we might have just updated it, but we did just update our cap to 11.5, so that did
Oh, okay, so
just
this is
go up,
new,
so,
yeah.
yeah.
So we're running the policy substantially less than what everyone else would run it at. And this case is $202,000 in target. Is that, get anyone excited here?
Yeah.
$200,000 target. Okay. My average target premium this year is, I think it's $283,000. I've written $154,000 in death benefit and just over $3.1 million in target premium. Just to give you an idea. I don't get out of bed, I'm sorry, I'll say this to brag, I'm just telling you, I don't get out of bed for less than $100,000 a target. It's just not worth it. And I know that sounds crazy, right? It sounds like I'm a braggadocious asshole, right? I'm just telling you this because I've done cases where I'm chasing a freaking guy for 11 months on a $3,000 term policy, $3,000 in premium term policy, and I can't get the guy to take his damn pyramid. But you're going through this, right?
Yeah.
You want to poke your eyeballs out with pencils, you know what I mean? I mean, it's so frustrating. Once you figure out how to do this, these are easier to close than that crappy $3,000 premium term case. You know why? Because the client's sophisticated enough to understand the value that we're bringing. There's a hand that went up somewhere back there. Yep.
What was the actual premium on that?
I'll show you.
Okay.
Yep.
Now taking it on your.
He's still in your job here. He's teeing me up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he passed the baton here.
We're also going to show how we can take money out.
Yep. This one I don't think we're showing taking money out,
Okay.
but you absolutely can, yeah. Okay, so here's the design of the policy. $750,000 in first year premium, $1.3 million, almost $1.4 million in premium borrowed per year in years 2 through 7. Okay, so you have a total borrowed amount of $8.3 million. Now, if you're looking at this, and you're thinking, yeah, that's great and everything, Darren, but how the hell am I going to find a prospect that's going to put up $750,000 and pay, $70,000 to $100,000 in annual interest? They're out there. You just haven't met them yet, and you haven't had anything good to take them. I've got a guy outside of Chicago. He's been licensed for, I don't know, maybe a couple years. Never done anything substantial in the life insurance business. My business partner met him over lunch, and he was trying to get this big client across the finish line, premium finance with one of our premium financing competitors. 9.5 months he's been working with the client. Can't get the client to pull the trigger. Client stops returning phone calls. his mentor meets my business partner at lunch. His mentor sets up a call where my business partner talks to this guy over the phone. We all start working together. 3.5 months later, we have a case paid. His commission on that case, $359,000. That was his take.
Wow.
3.5 months later. From meeting us. So this whole thing about all the big cases, they can take 6 months, 12 months, 2 years to close. Yeah, if you're working with someone that can't close. You're working with us, we can get this done in a couple months. All right, so this is the design. Let's get into all the variables here. So $750 first year premium paid out of pocket. Client's just moving money from his left pocket to his right pocket. He's going into his Merrill Lynch account, Morgan Stanley account, moving out $750,000, put it into here, right? Why would they do that? Well, do you believe in the IUL or not? If you got $750, do you want that sitting in a brokerage account with volatility and fees, or you lose your money, or you want to take that risk? Or do you want to put it in a product with a 0% floor secured by a 100-plus-year-old insurance company? Much more secure here. Again, they borrow almost $1.4 million, so they're borrowing just over $8 million. Okay, and in this situation, we're showing a loan payoff, the cash value, in the 16th year after 15 years. Okay, so this is the design. Let's look at the actual.
Before you go on,
Yep.
the first year was $750, but yet I'm borrowing $1.3 million, $4 million.
Yep.
Is that because you had the premium increase in the second year?
No, that's because purely the design. We could have them borrow the same $1.3 million in year one.
Right.
We're trying to reduce their required out-of-pocket costs in the first year. So we reduce that as low as possible, while still funding it enough to meet that 105% requirement of the bank.
Right.
Now,
That's not necessarily how you do it all the time.
no. If they were older and a little bit unhealthier, it's going to require a little more juice up front. So maybe $1 million in the first year, or maybe the full $1.3 million, $1.4 million in the first year. Okay.
But isn't that also designed so there's no collateral issues?
Exactly.
That's really one of the key ingredients here.
Yep. So, to give you an example, good point. So the case we did, that I was talking about earlier, 65-year-old standard non-tobacco. We designed it, it was a $30 million face, $1.8 million first year premium. He was going to borrow $2.5 million in years 2 through 7. Okay, that was the original design. And he's all set to go. He goes, how do I further ensure I'm not going to get a collateral call later on? How do I lower my interest payment? Well, in theory, you could put in more first year premium. Right, because it's only $1.8 million first year, and then it's $2.5 million thereafter. We could put in more, because what's the max I can put in the first year? Now, you gotta love it when your client asks you, what's the maximum premium they can put in? He goes, can I bump it up from $30 million to $100 million? I said, I'm sorry, we cannot go that high. They just don't, well, we could, but he doesn't qualify, he's not gonna qualify for $100 million death benefit. I said, we can apply for $57 million, but the highest you're gonna qualify for. He was pissed. So he applied. Underwriting comes back, max death benefit $30 million. He was even more pissed. Why can't I do more? Man, I love it when, see, my life has changed, you know what I'm saying? When you have a client who's pissed that you can only buy a $30 million policy, that's good news. So we, what's that?
Did he do his wife?
He's a widower. Okay. So we did,
Tell her you get married.
yeah. He said, what's the max I can do first year? The max non-MEP design we can do first year, he put in $2.5 million first year premium, then he borrowed $2 million a year for the next 6 years. So he borrowed $12 million total, $2.5 million first year premium. Target on that case was $750. Yep.
So the policy's collateralizing the loan.
Yes.
So how much financial underwriting is really done on the client?
From a compliance standpoint, the bank has to collect 2 years tax returns and a personal financial statement.
Yeah.
They take it, they put it in the file, and they put it away.
So really.
It has nothing to do with loan
I
approval.
get it, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I love that.
You have two people that are looking at the financials, which is the insurance company and the bank.
Yep. Yep. The insurance financial underwriting is far more difficult than the premium financing underwriting in our program. In the real world, the premium finance underwriting, it's like getting a colonoscopy. I mean, it's like crazy. Yeah.
And from the insurance perspective, we love that they're paying the first year premium because they've got skin in the game.
Yeah.
We love that.
You want to hear something crazy? This is what my competition will oftentimes do. And I got this statistic from someone that runs a very, very large IMO. He says that what will typically happen is, let's say I'm the so-called premium financing expert that doesn't know what the hell he's doing, which is what most of our competition does. And you're the agent being exposed to premium financing for the first time, right? You're all fired up. You got $1 million, premium case. You come to the table. You put your client through underwriting through Ohio National, okay? And now I can't, the financer can't really do anything until they get an offer from the insurance company. So the premium financing so-called expert is telling you and the client, don't worry about it, I'll get you the financing. Policy gets approved, right? How long between the paramedic and policy approval typically is gonna happen?
4 to 6 weeks?
Yeah, best case scenario. Let's say it takes a little longer for the client to do all that stuff that they're supposed to submit everything, right? You could be approaching the 6-month window that paramed's good. So let's say the policy is ready to issue in, say, month 5.5. And you're like, oh good, we got the approval. Okay, financing guy, do your thing. Okay, let me start working on it. Let me start working on it. See, you got 2 weeks, man. Right? And we can't like have the offer expire, because then the client's got to go through underwriting again, right? Full underwriting again. So what will happen is they'll bring in what they call the mezzanine financing guys. Think of it like hard money loans almost, right? So a short-term lender comes in and charges the client an ungodly interest rate just to get the funding into the policy, so you get the policy delivered and you get paid. Well, the mezz guys don't stick around for very long. Or the mezz guys might back out if they're looking at the case saying, well, how is the long-term financing program going? It's not ready to go yet. So let's say none of the lending comes together and the policy offer is about to expire. You know what they say to do? What could the client do in theory to get the policy in force for the least out-of-pocket cost for the client?
Pay a monthly premium.
Or a term.
So they buy the minimum, they begin the policy to pay the minimum premium. And say, just pay the minimum premium, man, it's not that much. We're gonna have this financing in place in like a week. A week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks goes by. Just pay one more month, we're almost there. What happens if the financing never comes together? Which happens a decent amount of the time. Because the financer, the lender is looking at the client saying, we gotta financially underwrite this guy. We don't have brokerage account statements. We don't have a checking account they sign over to us yet. So we're waiting for the client to get approved on the financial underwriting side of the lender. If that doesn't happen, what do you think happens? Charge that, charge that. You want to get $1 million charge, man?
Especially after you spent it.
Yeah. And now the client's pissed off at you, right? All bad things happen. And so that's why in our program, they pay the first year premium. They already know they're paying the first year premium going in. There are no outside collateral requirements. So, like I said with my wife's policy, a month and a half ago, we went from submitting the 2 years tax returns, personal financial statement, and the copy of the policy, to loan is funded, premiums are paid in the policy less than 48 hours later.
You have the lenders in place.
We already have the lenders in place, yeah. Yeah. So, wait, back to this, before I was so rudely interrupted. So here's what we do. We construct actually 5, I'm going to show you 4. We do 5 different 4-year periods of S&P performance. So we run the illustration at a significantly lower interest rate, usually 5.25 to 5 3/4. We extract the illustration data, we dump it in our software program, and then we run that policy back, showing the returns of the last 40 years, the returns of the last 20 years. We take that 20-year period and we run that back to back to create a hypothetical 40-year period. We take the best 20-year run, 1980 through 1999, we run that 20-year period back to back, and then we take the worst 10-year period, 2000 through 2009, we run that decade back to back, 4 decades in a row. So these are the compound annual growth rates of the S&P 500 in each of those periods of time. You ever have someone run an illustration at negative 1%?
Can't be done.
Yeah. So we heavily stress test this. Let's look at the last 40 years first, just to get the idea of this. A lot of numbers up here, I'll make this very easy to understand. This is a $20 million in face. This is what we looked at earlier. So $750 first year premium, The guy borrows a little under $1.4 million in years 2 through 7. Okay? This is the last 40 years of the S&P. This is what the S&P did in each of those respective years. And this is what the policy would have credited, assuming a 0% floor and a 10.5% cap. And you just said that went up to 11.5%? 11.5%, right? Okay, so this is what would have happened in this scenario here. Now, what we're going to talk about here is what this gentleman in the beige blazer over there asked about was the cost of the policy. This is important. So if the policy, if the S&P did 12.31% and you hit the cap at 10.5%, your cash value does not credit at 10.5%. Your index credits 10.5% minus the cost of the policy. So again, premium loads, non-guaranteed coverage, COI charges, et cetera, et cetera. That cost, assuming the way this policy is designed, the first year is a 57% charge. The second year is almost a 10% charge. And so if you get a 10.5% credit minus the cost of the policy, your cash is getting a return of 57 basis points in that year. That's what's actually happening. Now all of this, the data, the cash value and everything, when you run an illustration, it accounts for that. But is anyone doing the math to see what the actual return was cash on cash in the second, third, fourth year of the policy? No one's looking at that. So that's why your competitors and your AUM guys that hate life insurance and your pain-in-the-ass brother-in-law who's listening to Susie Orman talking about how cash value life insurance is no good, this is why you suck at entering that debate. Because you can't mathematically prove what is the actual drag on the policy, what's the cost of the policy. You know, Forbes says the average mutual fund expense all in is 3.17%. If you have someone that's paying 1% in advisor fees, don't you always just subtract the expected return in their managed investment account by a point? Well, we think we're going to get stuff. Well, minus the advisor fee, that'd be 6%. Wrong. You got the broker-dealer fee, you got the fund manager fee, and so if someone's paying a 1% advisor fee, all in should be expected about 2.7% all in. So the drag is not 1%, the drag is 2.7. We're showing a drag of, well, I'll show you this in a second here. We show an advisor fee of 50 basis points, which is really crazy low. Like you gotta have at least 5 million liquid to get a 50 basis point advisor fee. All in, that calculates about 1.35% all in. But so anyway, so that's the total policy cost. Interesting, we see the total policy cost, we're getting sub 2% as early as the 8th year here. So if you want to talk about the cost and drag on the policy, by the time you hit the 8th year, you're under the average all-in investment fee. The difference is that your 2% and change or so you're paying your advisors in a fund as family's vacation to Hawaii next year. As the client, when you pay the 1.44%, whatever it is in this area here, what are they buying? They're buying $20 million in death benefit. I will go up against any AE1 guy, any place, any time, and under any circumstance, and I prefer to do it than a bunch of his peers, because he will go home crying to his mama. There is nothing in the all transparent view of the comparison that I'll get beat on. The time where my outcome will get beat is when it's not a good deal for the client. They're too old, they're too sick, not enough premiums going in, whatever it is, and I'll tell the client, don't do it. We had a client recently, an advisor with an organization called the M Group, and in El Paso, Texas. Guy flies into Orange County, meets with me for a day. We review some cases. We've done, I think, 3 or 4 cases with them so far this year. And he lays out this client, and we said, I can tell you right there, it's not a good deal for the client. Why not? Too old, too sick. Cash value, if he's doing it for a cash value play, it's not a good deal for him. Don't do this. And I started ribbing him a little bit. I go, was this the litmus test? Were you just trying to test my integrity to see if I turned the business away, or if I was just a greedy bastard and I just want to buy as much target premium as I possibly can and start laughing? But if it's not a good deal for the client mathematically, I'll tell them don't do it. Okay, so that is the total policy cost. That's the actual return. And again, we're looking at the last 40-year period here. So the question is, how good is this? Well, compared to what? Let's compare it to a managed investment account. So we construct a hypothetical managed investment account based off of the client's age, anything below age 56, we're going to run it at a 60-40 equity to bond ratio. If they're 56 or older, it's going to be 40% equities, 60% bonds. And we're showing the exact same outlay going into this managed investment account invested here that's going into ours. So we have the $750 first year premium being invested into this thing, and then we have the speculated interest payments being invested into this thing. All right. The equity returns, we're using S&P historical returns, we're using the same 40-year period here. Bonds, we're using 10-year T-bond historical period, historical returns, again, same 40-year look back. We're using a $500,000 annual income, that puts them at a 48.1% short-term capital gains tax rate and a 33.1% long-term capital gains tax rate based off of living in the state of California. We're going to show a 50% of his equities being taxed at long-term, 50% taxed at short-term, and a 50 basis point advisor fee, all-in investment fee of 1.35%. And we look at what happens over the 40-year period there. I know you can't read it, I'm just kidding you. Here's it blowing up here, okay? So first year premium going in our policy, year one, $750. Then speculated interest paid, $6.3 million.
15 years, right?
This is 15 years, correct. Years 2 through 15.
At the end of the 15th year,
Loan payoff from the cash value.
and your cash value is reduced.
Correct.
So how do you get the money out of the cash value? You pay taxes, there's tax involved.
Withdrawals up to basis, so tax-free withdrawals coming out. Everything above basis is
So
policy
everything
loan.
shrinks.
What's that?
The death benefit.
Of course, yeah.
is proportional.
Yep. Yep. So essentially, same amount invested on both sides, right? Same outlay. In the 40-year look back, the 40-year account balance in the investment account, $21.5 million. Cash value net of loans in the policy, $27.8 million. That's a $6 million swing. I think that's pretty damn substantial. IRR difference 3.47 versus 4.27.
You were using a 40-60 blend?
40-60 blend on equity to bond, yep. And the crazy thing about the 10-year T-bond returns historically, if you look at the last 40 years, there's times, period, where bonds and bond returns are like 20%.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Where are bond returns now?
Sucks.
2.5%, right? So reality is the swing would be even greater under current circumstances. We stack the deck against our program and give the other side as many benefits of the doubt as we can, because I don't want some Mr. Know-it-all, Miss Know-it-all CPA beat me up on all the little minors. So every minor little variable is adjusted to benefit the other side.
Well, like that 50 basis point management, that's.
Yeah.
Can you, Merrill Lynch has a minimum 1.2.
Yeah.
So it's over reps.
50 basis
Or
point
max,
management.
and you can't go down any further.
Right.
How would this compare to a custom whole life?
Historically speaking,
If you pay, the premium, the
First year.
$7 million in 15 years,
yeah,
how will you compare? Is it
I'll show
way
you.
off? Is it really bad?
I'll show you a non-financed IUL comparison. For starters, the whole life policy, historically speaking, is not going to outproduce the returns in an IUL. It just hasn't. The dividend rate,
By how much? Like, that's what I mean. Is it huge?
25 to 30% typically. 25 to 30%. Because you figure, guarantee on a whole life policy, typically 4% and change, something like that. Dividend scale, depending on the carrier, a couple more points. All the whole life carriers have reduced their dividend scale as of last year. Northwestern Mutual, human. Doesn't mean whole life is bad.
No, but I'm saying, is there a big, huge difference, or are we in the...
Historically speaking, it's a huge difference. Now, whether history repeats itself is a whole other issue, right? Like, historically speaking, equities have outperformed bonds. Why would anyone buy a crappy bond at 2% change? All you're doing is offsetting your downside by playing a little more conservative. Whole life, the way I look at whole life, it's great for the client that's super conservative, that is adamant about guarantees. Now, for me, I'm not that guy. My mom, she's that client. My mom is worried that the sky's gonna fall when we get one drop of rain, you know what I'm saying? So someone like that, they may be more predisposition more inclined to do whole life. And we can finance whole life too.
So is there any way we can run, because I'm really interested in this, in your, what you're showing, but I would like to see it, this particular example compared to a 15-year custom whole life, to see what the huge, like Ohio Mutual custom like.
Our entire value proposition is compared to what? ... So I've compared it to a gold index, the Spider Fund Gold Index, because we have this client that thought it was really fancy. Idiot. I've compared it to finance whole life, non-finance whole life, non-finance IUL. I've compared the exact same product, financed using my competitor's financing arrangement. I've compared it to a managed investment account. I've compared it to a qualified retirement plan. I can compare it to almost anything. And from a mathematical standpoint, you can't argue the math. You cannot like me, but you can't argue the math. Yep.
Well, I get your ... compared to, and what do you get when the client says, well, yeah, but I can do better in the market?
Yeah.
Because you're doing a 40-60.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
We can run it at 100% equities.
Right,
Yeah,
and that's going to kick that IRR to 4.5 or 5, right?
Depends on the sequence of returns.
They have
Also
no-
depends on the drawdowns.
They have no insurance.
Yeah,
too.
and no insurance, right. So let's look at kind of the whole picture. So 40-year look back, that's what it looks like. Green line is cash value growth, red line are equities. Now you can argue, yeah, but it's better here. Yeah, I agree. If you die here, this is going to be way up because you got the death benefit, right? Over a 40-year period, the cash value eclipses. Am I saying life insurance as an asset class is for everyone? No. Am I saying everyone should dump 100% of their dollars into this if they could? I'm not saying any of that. All I'm saying is that it's a death benefit product, first and foremost, right? That's why you do this. But if you're worried that your dollars are being wasted on this expensive ass insurance, it's not true. If you look at it from an accumulation standpoint. Now, if you take drawdowns, that's going to change again. Let me just blaze this section here real quick. 20-year look back times 2, that's what it looks like. That's the disparity.
20 years?
Yeah, last 20 years,
Oh, okay.
and then running the last 20-year return again. Last 20 years, S&P compounded on growth rate 7.17%. We're taking that 7.17%, running it back to back. But it's not 7.17% static. It's with all the volatility.
Sure.
So 2001, 2001, 2002, S&P was -10, -13, -23%. Bam, bam, bam. A couple years later, you got 2008, -37%, not including dividends. So the reason it's so important to run it this way is that when you start off with 3 goose eggs in a row, how is the policy going to perform? Will it even stay in force, number 1? And then 2, what's the comparison by putting that money elsewhere? And that's what all these reports are going to show you, is the worst 10 years. Okay? So let's run it compared to a non-finance IUL. This is both Ohio National IULs, same exact product, same exact target, same everything. In a non-finance policy for $20 million, it's going to be $353,000 in annual premium for 30 years. Okay, same face amount, again, same exact target. And here's the comparison from a cash value standpoint. Okay, keep in mind, with us, it's $3.5 million less outlay. Okay, so there's first year, the interest paid in ours, the total outlay, ours 7.1, non-financed 10.6, and even though we are $3.5 million less out of pocket, look at the cash value over 40 years, $13 million swing.
Where is the crossover point? Is it like 25 years,
Depends on the policy.
30 years?
Yeah, it depends on the policy. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, $13 million swing in cash value, and you're $3.5 million less out of pocket, same exact product from same exact carrier, same exact target. You want to non-finance the policy and pay $3.5 million more and get less cash value? Go ahead. Yep.
Gary, you control the lender on it?
Yep.
You don't let the client control the lender?
We define control. Choose?
Yeah.
If the policy is set up to where we can get the approval done by more than one lender, and the client wants one of those lenders that we don't recommend as being the best, yeah, they can do it, sure. No problem.
Now, the lender is guaranteed for 15 years, right? The lender is in it.
The
Or
lend-
that they have to refinance every year,
Yeah.
we have to reapply.
In operation, they're reapplying every year, but the loans are evergreen loans. And the reason is because the loans are evergreen loans. It's almost, I can't say guaranteed, but it's almost guaranteed renewal every year, because the lender, again, put yourself in the position of the lender, the bank. You loan a guy $1 million, you got $1.1 million in cash value, right? Next year comes along, you load in another $1 million, now you've lent $2 million, and you got $2.6 million. If you're the lender, if that trend continues, are you ever gonna call that loan? You would never call that loan. If, for some crazy reason, they decide they're gonna exit the space, they get bought out by a new bank, and the new bank doesn't wanna be in the space, then we just roll the loan over to one of our other lenders, no problem. Because all of our lending terms are the same, even though we have 6 different banks, 5 are publicly traded.
Question, is the arbitrage here because, I'm sorry, is the growth in the index arbitrage version because we're overfunding it so much at the beginning and throwing so much more money in? Is that why?
It's all front loaded, yeah.
Right.
Because this premium spread over a 30-year period. Here, I mean, that's a lot of, the design was $1 million, almost $1.4 million for, was it 4 years?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Question.
Yep.
So 40 years, if you have someone who's 40 years old, that was good. Would you agree that maybe 20 years is more representative of the kind of case? Do you have a comparison on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. When we go through the ledger, when we go through,
30 years.
yeah, we go through this, we'll just say, okay, well, 16 years into it, your client's 70, and that's what the outcome is, and then we'll look at the outcome on whatever we're comparing it to. As well as the death benefit, obviously. Everything here, these are all variables. We can change these inputs. We can change when we pay the loan off. So we can show pulling income out. We can change how much income is being pulled out, when it starts, when it ends, and we can do it all on the fly. So unlike the old school paper version, you go meet with a client, you drive across town, you go meet with them, they say, oh, sounds good, but can you show income starting in year 17 instead of 18? It's like, oh, geez, are you serious? You go out there and next week, can you show the interest rate increasing by 2 basis points? And you're gonna choke the client, right? Here, it's all done right there on the spot. Any variation they want to see, boom, 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 done right there.
And the minimum was $100,000 death benefit or premium?
Target premium,
Premium.
which is going to be about a $200,000 to $250,000 first year premium.
Okay.
So do you understand the concept of target premium? That's a question.
Oh, okay.
in the room.
We get paid off of the target premium, right? So let's say, use easier math here. Let's say the client was going to pay $100,000 a year for 30 years. Target premium is probably going to be about $100,000. But when you take all that premium and you stuff it all into the first 5 years, right? Now the client's paying like, whatever, $500,000 a year. The target, but it's only for 5 years or for 7 years. The target premium is not going to be the paid premium. You can't have a $500,000 target because they're only paying that for 5 years, right? You're just taking it and squishing it all up front.
So we're getting close to the MEC limit, basically.
You're getting close to the net limit, yeah. So a target premium is going to be roughly about half of what the first year premium is going to be. Okay, right, the first year premium of $1 million, target's going to be about $500,000. And that's what we get paid off.
So that's a good point. These policies don't make. You gotta make.
No, we don't have the policy.
For someone younger, let's say in a corporation, P employee, could this work in deferred comp?
Absolutely. So, absolutely. When we wrap up here, I'll take you through just a handful of what I call the funky stuff. These are non-traditional scenarios that we've come across where we've been able to use a strategy in place of the usual suspect solution like deferred comp or like defined benefit plan, things like that. I'll get into that.
So the client credit history is important.
What's that?
The client's credit history is important.
No, care less about it. Nope.
Before you go on, you said your minimum when you're doing this is 100,000?
In target, yeah, target. So about $200,000 to $250,000 in the first year premium.
Maybe 4 or 5% on that initial premium.
On the excess,
Over
yeah.
100,000.
Depending upon your contract.
Yeah, right.
Every 10, right?
Okay, let me just get through this and then we'll open it up to questions. A couple more things here. Let's see here, we did this one, right? Yeah. Okay, net cash accumulated comparison, okay? So when I say net cash, the one I showed you before this one, I mean, 18 million versus 27 million, that's a big difference, right? But remember, consider that we paid $3.5 million less out of pocket. If we take that into consideration, this is the net cost difference. So this is the cash value minus our out-of-pocket expense to make this happen. And this is the, look at the difference. Non-finance IUL versus the finance IUL. Same exact product.
Net cash accumulated. Wow.
Crazy.
You know, the nice thing is New York Times doesn't say, well,
Yeah. Okay. This is the percentage of increase of cash value above and beyond net cash value, net cash value after we pull the expenses out, the payments out. This is how much greater the cash value is on our program versus the non-financed. Again, both sides treated exactly the same. Okay. Now, the grand finale is this. This is the grand finale. Yeah, this is the grand finale here. All right. This is the worst 10 years, followed by the last 20 years, followed by the worst 10 years again. Compound annual growth rate of the S&P right here, 3.01%. Okay. Would you agree that running an illustration at 3.01% is pretty? I mean, that sucks, right? I mean, that's like pretty awful. We're going to show, to your point, an 8% annual increase on the U.S. Treasury deal yield curve every year for 40 years in a row. It's never happened. Over the last 20 years, has decreased at a compounded annual decrease amount of 5.31% per year. We're showing 8% increase every year for 40 years in a row. Now, clearly, it doesn't matter after the 16th year or 15th year here because we're paying off the loan with cash value. But still, we're showing borrow rates going north of 10%. Okay? If that wasn't enough, we're going to show the cash value funding the increased interest payment. So in this column right here, you get to the 15th year here, your interest payment is $441,000 greater than it would have been had the borrow rate not increased. And we're pulling that amount from the policy cash value. So the client is in a simulated environment here where they have a fixed borrow rate. So we got 3% returns in the policy. We got the policy, or the loan increasing at 8% every year for 40 years in a row, where we top out at over 10% on the borrow rate. We're funding the increase in interest payment from the cash value, and it still stays in force. So what were we worried about again? Policy doesn't perform. We're showing 3.01% returns.
And that's borrowing out or paying back the loan at year 16.
16, yep.
You're taking all of that cash from the policy, right?
Yep.
Gets back to his point, yeah, the cash is less, but the death benefit's still in force.
Yep.
Thank you, Ed.
3.1% policy performance, 10% borrow rate, and all the additional interest payment cost is coming from the policy cash value and still in force. We are now in what I call checkmate position. Is there anything I have missed? I will literally ask the client, and especially if they have a fancy schmancy CPA, I'll ask them, is there anything I've missed? Are there anything in my mathematical calculations that are incorrect? If the answer is no, we have now run out of reasons to not do this. You know, I told you I was running a screen share meeting with a client back east in my car in the parking lot right before I came in here. That $2.5 million first year premium case I did. These fancy schmancy 81 guys told me up front, Darren, you will never talk to our clients. Our clients are millionaires. You will never know their names. You will never talk to them. You will produce numbers, you will give them to us, and we will tell you what happens. I'm like, shh. Sure you will. So I play along in the beginning, because these guys got big egos, real big egos. And so we design the whole thing, we review it, and he says, okay, final client meeting is tomorrow. I said, I'm gonna be on the freeway, I'm driving back from Palm Desert, and you need me, just ping me. Trust me, Darren, we won't need you. We are very adept at this. Congratulations, bro. So I start getting pinged like every 5 minutes via text. Question. I call the guy, put me on speakerphone. He goes, no, put me on speakerphone. I'm gonna pull over the side of the road. I pull over the side of the road to a Starbucks in the middle of nowhere. I get on the Wi-Fi in my car. I pull up the spreadsheet. We do a screen share. We go through. Client says, show me worst case scenario. So worst case scenario is if the lost decade, 2000 through 2009, repeats itself 4 decades in a row. But I don't really think that's realistic. Do you? He goes, no. I said, do you want unrealistic worst case scenario or do you want realistic worst case scenario? Question, right? What do you think he says? Realistic. Okay, so what if we start off with the worst 10-year period ever? So we're going to show -10, -13, -23%, and a couple years later show a -37% return. So in the first 10 years, we're going to show 4 zeros out of those 10 years. And then we're going to follow it up by the last 20 years and then wrap it up with the worst 10 years again. Is that fair? Is that about as worst case scenario? It's 3.01% compounded annually? He goes, yeah, that's as worst as it's ever going to get. So I literally on the fly, that sandwich version I showed you, that's how I came up with it. I built it on the spot at Starbucks in my car, in the parking lot. So I'm boom, keying everything in. Then he goes, wait, 2.5 million first year premium. I'm going to borrow 12. Worst case scenario, I'm out of pocket, whatever that was in interest payments. He goes, that's the worst case scenario. I said, yes. He goes, I can live with that. You know, any other questions, or does this look good? Another question? Looks good. Boom, took the app.
Speak to
But I'm lost, yeah. Yeah, exactly, I wasn't going to speak to them, yeah. They've changed their tune a little bit now. But everything that we do is all based on the math. There's nothing that I'm going to propose to a client that I cannot back up and prove mathematically. And that's the problem in our industry, is everyone's selling based off of this trust me, I'm a doctor crap. They're selling off of the relationship. Oh, but they're my fraternity brother, they're my cousin, they're my best friend, whatever. Yeah, well, you wouldn't let your cousin do open heart surgery on you, would you? I'm the open heart surgeon. So when we work with agents, you bring us a case, we design the illustration, we design the case, we put it into our proposal format. We've got our standard proposal, we have an abbreviated summary proposal that's much easier for an average client to be able to read through. I've got a 36-page white paper that explains every moving part, every variable of the process. It actually imports their data into the charts and the graphs in that white paper proposal. And we do the sale from A to Z. We arrange the lender, we get a term sheet from the lender up front before the policies ever issued. Then we handle all of the loan renewals year after year after year.
What's the commission? What are we doing?
I'm getting there, man, I'm getting there. So when we do that, we take a third of the case. We go down for 33% on the back of the app. If we have to get in a car or jump in a plane, we take 50. If we have to do more than that on a more complex case, where you're doing an ESOP buyout or a deferred comp deal or a sinking fund for a privately held corporation or an endowment fund with a university, things exotic like that, then that's somewhat negotiable.
So when I see with my client first time, do I have access to this database?
Your job is to say, I got a guy, and tee me up, and I take it from there.
But we have to show, I don't have access to that.
You do not want access to this.
No.
No.
I do have,
Yeah, especially because you're in your first year.
Just with us.
here's what I show you what I do have.
Yeah.
I have made things,
Because he, as he said earlier in the meeting, can close. Okay, and he can explain it. So, trust him.
I'm gonna show you one thing real
Even though he's
quick
a doctor,
here.
trust him. All
Yeah.
you want to do is get your client in front of him.
So for some folks, like the Silicon Valley guys, I have thought, how do I make this so that their ego isn't crushed?
Thank you.
But they don't step on their own.
Tongue.
So I'll play you two quick videos here. This is 1:40 seconds long. These are two great door openers. This one revolves around taxes. All business owners have one thing in common. They all feel like they're paying too much in taxes. I mean, you've got income tax, capital gains tax, property tax, and depending on your net worth, maybe even estate tax, and the list goes on and on. At Lionsmark Capital, we specialize in working with business owners that are looking for ways to get a substantial business tax deduction and use their tax savings to create a tax-free personal income, so they're not having to pay taxes at the highest income tax bracket. And although we're not a CPA firm or tax planning attorneys, we'll typically work with your CPA to implement some of our programs. Our proprietary program, Leveraged Index Arbitrage, consists of a combination of strategies backed by 5 publicly traded banks, 1 privately held bank, 8 multi-billion-dollar insurance companies, and 4 specific IRS tax codes. The combination of these entities working in concert together can create a substantial business tax deduction for business owners, and at the same time fund a personal tax-free nest egg for your retirement. So the question is, how do you pay less income tax and both maximize and leverage the net profits in your business for your own personal financial benefit? Well, if you own a business and you feel like you're overpaying in taxes and you're looking for an IRS-approved strategy that gives you greater tax deductions and maximizes the net dollars you get to keep in your own pocket, we have the solution for you. Lionsmark Capital. We help you maximize your tax deductions and maximize the net dollars you get to keep in your own pocket. So schedule a time to meet with one of our specialists. We promise you'll be glad you did it.
Is that right?
Sorry, what was that?
Are we trying to make sure that they have enough to, on their own, pay for the first premium?
Yes, yeah.
That's-
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah, real quickly, if you go here on the bottom of the screen, there's a little button that says request it's like a case planning discussion or something like that. You click on that and a little fact finder will pop up. You just fill it out online, it gets emailed to our office, and then we'll set up a conference call with you to discuss the case.
Have you done any work or premium finances with charitable organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We did one with a university, big football-based university. There were 7 donors, all ex-ball players. 3 of them made it to the league.
Right.
They were going to donate cumulatively $750,000 pledge. We got with the ringleader and we said, how would you like to get credit for a 10x pledge for no more out of pocket?
Now, in that particular case, did you start with the university foundation and then he went to the donors?
We went to the donors first because we had a relationship with the donor.
Okay.
The donors. And so what we did was we designed a deal where we're putting policies on 3 of the 7 donors. The policies are sitting in ILETs, right? So we're not having the policies owned by the university because it's very difficult to justify insurable need, right? So you guys should link the history. Donating, forget it. It's not worth it. So the donor donates to the university, normal pledge,
Right.
tax deduction to the donor,
Right.
tax neutral to the university.
Right.
University then passes that through into an ILET. The ILET owns the policy on the insured, okay?
Right.
The death benefit is going to pay from the carrier to the ILET, so that there's, again, no insurable need issues. But the ILET is instructed to pay that death benefit once paid to the ILET back to the university.
Right.
Yeah. So that's where it started. Then we had to go get approval from the charitable giving plan giving department of the university. We got them on board, and there you go. Our proprietary 5X charitable pledge program maximizes the net pledge received by the nonprofit organization by multiplying the donor's initial pledge and uses a strategy called Leveraged Index Arbitrage. The basic premise of the program starts with the donor making a charitable contribution to the nonprofit organization, wherein the donor receives the typical tax deduction for such contribution. The nonprofit organization passes the donated funds through to an irrevocable life insurance trust, known as an ILET, which holds a life insurance policy on the donor. The irrevocable life insurance trust pays the premiums on the life insurance policy and is also the beneficiary of the life insurance policy, with the nonprofit organization being the beneficiary of the ILET. So for example, let's say a 65-year-old donor donated a cumulative pledge just shy of $5 million. The pledge would then pass through to the ILET to pay the $5 million of cumulative premium on the life insurance policy.
Now, typically that $5 million would be spread over a period of 20 years at roughly $248,000 per year. And the death benefit, in this case $10 million, would then pay out to the islet upon the donor's passing, flowing through to the nonprofit organization. Now, essentially, that's double the initial pledge. So, utilizing life insurance as a tool to multiply a donor's pledge could be an effective tool to magnify the donor's legacy and memorialize the donor's life and their contribution to the nonprofit organization. But as good as this proposition is, we have a program that multiplies the net pledge even greater. It's called the Leveraged Index Arbitrage program, and it literally doubles the net pledge going to the nonprofit organization while requiring a lesser out-of-pocket initial pledge from the donor. In this scenario, the donor donates just under $4.5 million instead of almost $5 million. The pledge passes through to the islet, and the islet pays the first year life insurance premium. We then bring in a lender to pay the premiums in years 2 through 7, and the islet then pays interest-only payments to the lender in years 2 through 14. And in the 15th year, the policy cash value pays off the lender in full, while maintaining the full death benefit of the policy. The difference in this leveraged index arbitrage program, however, is that the death benefit of the policy is now over $20 million as opposed to only $10 million. The death benefit of the policy pays to the islet and then flows through to the nonprofit organization. And that's a $23.4 million net pledge. So in summary, the Leveraged Index Arbitrage program turns the initial $4.4 million pledge into a $23.4 million net pledge. Now, if the nonprofit organization received the same initial pledge from the donor of $4.5 million and deposited that into their endowment fund over a period of 26 years, by the time the donor is age 90, at a 4.5% net annual return, the account balance would be just north of $12 million, compared to over $23 million with the Leveraged Index Arbitrage program. So, as you can see, our program maximizes the net pledge received by the nonprofit organization for the same or less out-of-pocket expense for the donor. It's really a win-win for both the donor and the nonprofit organization. So, if you want to maximize the net pledge to the nonprofit organization, use our proprietary 5X Charitable Pledge Program, brought to you by Lionsmark Capital. It's just the right thing to do.
So you wouldn't be opposed if I brought you the head of the university or the head of the foundation that, first, because I don't have a relationship with the donors?
Yeah, no, absolutely, that'll work. We had another situation where, it's funny, because this was great, and then it sucked, and then it's good again. So it was great, so we had a relationship with a small historical black university in South Florida. The we call him chancellor, the head dude there,
right,
was looking for a way to use life insurance as an asset class. So we already understood the concept. So we proposed a deal where they do 13 policies on the faculty members, not on the donors. The donors donate the money to the university. Mm-hmm. The university buys key man policies on the faculty, which is very justifiable, right? It was $1.1 million on each, it was 13 of them. Yeah. They finance the premiums through our program, and they just use that as an asset class. We showed the comparison of where if they did that versus putting it in a sinking fund and taxes, volatility, all that stuff. Loved it. Everything is done. All the signatures from the faculty are done. Approved, ready to issue. Chancellor gets fired. No, it would have been the perfect case study. Yeah. The good news is that by going through that case, we learned exactly how to do it and how to get this thing across the finish line. So where this case got resurrected is the chancellor is now head of another HBC, another historic black university. Contacted us, wants to do it, and his right-hand man that makes all the decisions used to be a business partner of my current business partner. Wow. So yeah, it all comes back around. So that's a cool situation there. Yeah.
The commission again, you said it was 30%. What, can you run the scenarios again?
Yeah, so if it's $1 million in commission, we take 33% of the million. You're taking 67% of the million. So you're making 670, we're making 330.
Okay, but it goes up to 50%
if I have to hop in my car or get on a plane to go meet the client. Otherwise, we do everything via screen share the way I was doing in the parking lot.
So if you got to go to Huntington Beach, that's 50%.
No, maybe it's local neighborhood or something.
And about that, what needs to happen?
If you want to introduce me to university, that's a whole other level of planning that comes in. So You bring me the case, you tell me what the parameters are, I say, here's what needs to be done, here's what it's gonna cost you in terms of split, you can decide to accept or reject.
And what is the agent's participation through the process? Is he, are we present in the process?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, no, I was assuming you want to be, yeah. Yeah. The less you say, the better. Let's take advantage of your good looks, let's not have you over here.
Zero comment.
So let's suppose you have someone, say, 53 years old, making $1 million a year with a net worth of 10 million.
Yeah, sweet stuff, I mean, that's sweet spot right
Yeah,
there.
but I don't know whether that, I just sold him $1 million policy, he's got about 4 million that I need to review, I think this would be perfect, but I don't know whether I meet your threshold for premium.
Let's discuss the case, right? So, well, let's discuss the case now, right? So let's see, one of my guys, we do direct-to-consumer cases, about 20% of the cases, about 80% of the cases are sourced from outside advisors bringing them, to our firm. So Aaron, one of my guys, did a case that just paid out about a month ago. And I think his take was like 80 grand, 70, 80 grand, something like that. So it was a decent, I think it was $250,000, 300,000 first year premium, something like that. You know how he got that case? It was one of his clients that he sold an IUL to that was putting in $500 a month. Now, what happened was he made the same mistake that I used to make, the same mistake that everyone in this room makes, and that is you prejudge the client and you decide how much money they should put away. The problem is all clients lie to you. They don't tell you where they have their money. So if you're not managing all of their assets, they may have assets they're not telling you about. So this guy's had, a few $1 million sitting on the sidelines, and when he saw this, he's like, wait a minute, you're telling me that that managed account in that scenario produced less than the cash value of your program? Yes. Then the question is what? What's the max I can do? My whole game is I'm going to get that prospect to ask me what the max they can do is. If they're not asking me what the max is, then I haven't sold this program properly up front. So the more they have on the sidelines, they are always going to want to put in more than they will qualify for from a death benefit standpoint. And isn't that fun? We see it in the movies, right? Like, I'm sorry, I cannot sell you more, right? That is my reality.
Right. Boy, that's tough, huh?
Yeah.
So Darren, what is your minimum premium threshold?
Yeah, that's $100,000 in target. So 200 to 250 in first year premium.
Okay.
Well, two scenarios. You got the asset manager that is really performing much better than what you're illustrating, but then you also got the asset manager that is underperforming. Okay, so I see a negative, not a negative situation, but if I'm as the asset manager, if I'm bringing you a client and I'm overperforming, then you've got a hurdle. But if I'm underperforming,
In theory, yes, right? But see, I'm not trying to move all of their AUM over into this. Right? You probably couldn't even do it, because from an insurability standpoint. What I am saying though is, let's say you have an asset manager that's knocking the ball out of the park. Here's an example. So my business partner, we fly up to Notre Dame, we meet with their travel plan giving department, and we start looking at historical returns of their endowment. Now, I've seen endowment funds from universities in the past, and if they can get a return of like from 4.1% to 4.2%, they're like giving each other trophies. I look at the historical returns of Notre Dame's endowment fund, it's crazy.
right.
It's like so off. I think the guy's average return in the last like 10, 12 years, it was almost double digits. And the reason that's so impressive is that an endowment fund has to be so incredibly conservative because they cannot go to the trustee and say, I'm sorry, we lost.
Yeah.
We went negative 20% this year, right? They can't do that.
They bought junk bonds.
Was that?
They bought junk bonds.
Yeah. So here's what we say to advisors that's performing well. How much money do you have in bond funds?
Okay.
So let's say they got 10 million liquid and they got 3 in bonds.
Right.
What kind of performance do you expect to get your bond fund? 2.25, 2.5?
Right.
The best. Why don't we think of this as
Your bond fund alternative.
exactly?
Awesome answer. Thank you.
Exactly. even though I know we're gonna kick the shit out of their equity returns.
One step at a time.
Historically. But every once in a while, you're gonna have some smart, smart-ass advisor that doesn't even understand how the game works. And they're gonna talk about these returns that are ridiculous. Well, all my clients get 20% returns. Well, based on what? Well, based off of our real estate investment portfolio. Since when?
6 months of this year.
Yeah, no, exactly. My clients are about 20% in the last 6 years. But no shit, if they're less than that, then you'd be an awful real estate advisor.
That's right.
Everyone got those returns in the last X amount of years, So I like the combative, nitpicking adversary. And the reason is because if they're intelligent, because the intelligent nitpicker is going to fall in love with this. They will appreciate this program much greater than the person that just rolls over and says, okay, I'll do it, I'll let you pursue, Yeah.
So the key here, Darren, is we don't need to find somebody that has $250,000 that they can afford out of their annual income to pay this. We've got to look at the person that's got the net worth.
Exactly.
They've got a combination of a few things, so they're out there,
Yeah.
no doubt.
You know what the easiest sale is? 1035 money from existing cash value policies. I call this the Northwestern Mutual Killer. If you find, and I did Northwestern Mutual, but if you find a whole life policy or any cash value policy with a decent amount of surrender value in it, and that configuration of that outdated policy is really just not advantageous compared to this, right? Compared to what? Compared to this, 1035 the money over. So, I mean, you're going to have policy, you're coming across policies. These people are not wealthy, but they got $500,000 or $1 million in cash value in some old whole life policy or whatever policy that they should just 1035 over. And boom, there's your first year premium.
Now, is there any way we can get a simple program to run a simple illustration?
No.
That's the thing, it's like
There's nothing simple about
so
this.
if I have a client where I can, in that scenario, and I'm sending them to work, to a dark room with you.
Play a video.
I want to know.
I got a guy.
Maybe I can sell them something that instead of taking the chance of sending them to you and nothing might happen.
Well,
I guess that's the chance you gotta take. You send me, I screw it up because I'm no good at this.
I'm not
That's possible.
No, Hector, the one thing I would say is certainly not all your cases are going to be ones that you bring Darren in on.
Sure.
Darren is very good at what he does. He's been doing it
I'm
for
not
16 years.
questioning his ability. I'm saying, where is it going? I cannot even see what, if it's going to work for my client.
Sure.
So if I can see that in which direction the policy will go, I might get excited, like you said. I get excited and say, look, this is the way it works. And well, the hypothetical numbers are going to be, they're not exact, but and I get them excited.
Think of it like this.
Wait a minute, let me finish. Now, I get them excited, then I haven't talked to you. But if I'm just saying, oh, look, I know somebody that can make it rich. It doesn't, there's nothing I see. I have a hard time on that scenario. That's why I need something like a simple calculator. It doesn't have to be a very detailed program. Just a calculator where I can say, well, this person is 35 years old, he has $500,000 cash value. This is what we can do if we on these other policies.
I have what you're looking for. It's case study.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Case study, you can go through and talk all the way through it. Talk yourself in circles.
Yeah, you mentioned the white paper and case studies. That'd be great.
Oh, the white paper too, yeah.
Yeah.
I got a 36-page white paper that goes through every single piece of every single part of this. And then along with that is a summary proposal with a ledger that you can go through and show them. I never run an illustration for someone that I haven't talked with for at least 30 to 60 minutes. The first time I meet with a prospect, I show them a case study. I don't run illustrations, I don't run and do all that stuff. There's several reasons. One, it's a waste of time. Two, if you run it on them, they get emotionally attached to that proposal and they get locked into it. If I show them a case study where it's not the same age, it's not the same amount, right? They either add a zero or they drop a zero from the numbers. They can emotionally distance themselves from what I'm showing them and they solely focus on what is the program, what's the concept. Once they get the concept and they like the concept, the number they're going to give me for the first year of premium and what they can afford from an interest payment standpoint is typically 2 to 3 times higher than what you think it is.
Wow. And what's the best way to disseminate the case study out to the group? Is that on the website, or can you shoot that over to me and I can get that?
I can shoot it over to you.
Yeah, and then so I'll get that over to you guys in the next 24, 48 hours.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Is there a book that would be nice to what this gentleman was talking about, that you could give a client to read?
You can give them the Ouch book, and you can buy those on Amazon. I like the white paper the best.
The white paper?
It's very, very inclusive, but it's not so much, but it's a quick read, you know?
I'll get the white paper and the case studies out to you guys.
It's very technical from a full disclosure standpoint, but a layman, I wrote it so that a layman can read it. Someone that knows nothing about any of this stuff can read it and go, oh, okay, I understand how that's what I did that.
Did everyone put their email on here? If so, I'll get the case study and the white paper to you here in the next couple days.
Okay.
What's the Ouch book?
The Ouch book you can find on Amazon. Yeah,
That video, I'm thinking about that from a marketing perspective. Could we
That's
get
right.
access to
OUCH.
that?
Yep.
I
WhyPremiumFinancing.com.
got a number of 500,000.
The video's on Lionsmark.
Yeah.
Yep. It all depends on how that policy was designed and how it's performing, and if they like this concept better. So the way I got my wife into her policy, she had a whole life policy. It was it was a pay to age 64, and it was $20,000 annual premium. Okay. In the 5th year, it had $76,000 in the cash surrender value. I just rolled that over to satisfy the first year premium. Schedule borrow, so we're borrowing $600,000, 300, 300. Policy cash value at age 65 is 2.5x, so 2.5 times bigger than it was before. Death benefit, initial face amount, went from 1.1 to 5.3.
Wow.
Yeah, interest payments are going to be roughly about the same, 22,000-ish or so. And, not to open a whole other can of worms, I have one of my entities own that policy. So the interest payments that my company pays to the bank, I'm deducting those as tax deductions because it's lender interest, which you cannot do if it's owned by a trust or an individual.
It's what kind of interest?
Well, loan interest.
Loan interest.
Yep.
And this is not right for everybody. You know, not every one of the people we meet with is going to be a fit for what Darren does, but there is a large chunk of the population of people that this could be an amazing fit for. And that's why I wanted to introduce Darren and his concepts to y'all. And if you have that case or that person, it's just as simple as, hey, I got a guy I'd love to introduce you to. We'll get the white paper and the case studies out so you can really feel a little bit more comfortable with the idea and the concept. And then we'll go write some awesome premium on National, right?
Sounds good.
Big round of applause.